Option two would be to ask science teachers to switch classrooms to be able to move that biology class to an accessible classroom if one is available. This one seems like a pretty straightforward, easy option. It could be a very potentially easy fix, especially if another one of the science classrooms can easily just be switched so that Miguel can still have access to his biology class. Obviously, the pros would be this is an easier way to provide an accessibility accommodation for Miguel to be able to support the educational success of Miguel without having to change his schedule or spend money for renovations. It could potentially be the simplest solution to the problem. The cons would be that it may not be possible at all to switch to an accessible classroom due to a variety of limitations. Maybe it just doesn't work with the space, maybe it doesn't work with the resources, maybe it would be too much of a time constraint to make that switch, and ultimately could lead to no solution if too many roadblocks are present. It could also upset the science teachers or department with having to orchestrate a last-minute switch due to a completely preventable situation that could have been avoided in the first place if the building was 100% up to code as opposed to 75% up to code. Option three is that Bandaid approach. Again, it's at install the temporary ramp or other accessibility equipment to provide accessibility to that biology classroom for the remainder of the semester, while waiting for the building to upgrades to meet accessibility requirements for the long term. The pros would be that it would effectively solve the problem for the short term and ensure that Miguel has access to the class and program that he needs and wants to be in anyways. It would be a cost-effective way to provide an accommodation and access for the short term, but our cons would be that is obviously it's not a long-term solution for the accessibility problem at the school. There's still 25% of the building that is in the same situation. So chances that Miguel ends up in a separate class later on in his academic career that has an accessibility problem would just end us right back into the same place that we are right now. The ramp and equipment may not even fit or completely solve the accessibility problem. All we know is that there is an accessibility problem. We don't know what extent it is, so maybe it's a ramp, maybe it's the size of the tables, the desks, the physical space in the room. I'm just going out on a limb and assuming that it's an accessibility thing for getting to the physical space of the classroom. I don't know what the layout of the school looks like. Maybe a ramp or this equipment, we could figure out a way to improve the accessibility with temporary equipment while we wait for long-term solutions. Maybe it's just that it's on the second or third floor and there's only a certain number of classrooms up there and there's no elevator. And then that's an even larger issue. So a temporary installation of accessibility stuff may or may not ultimately be even reasonable for the physical space or the school or the budget or any of those other factors. But, obviously with 3,200 students in the school, a permanent accessibility option would be the best case scenario because I find it hard to believe that Miguel is the only student out of 3,200 that would need any sort of accommodation for accessibility. It seems like with a student population that large, it should be something that would be on the top of the priority list anyways, is making sure that they can provide access to all of the classrooms that they have to all students. And then option four is the comprehensive approach. Meet with all of the stakeholders, discuss options for other classes that could be used immediately without sacrificing educational opportunities. Come to a mutual decision, review and retrain all staff on ADA and FAPE just to make sure that we can avoid a situation like this in the future. And then again, look into getting the building up to code immediately as soon as possible to avoid future issues because more than likely there will be some. The pros for that is it demonstrates a commitment to develop and maintain a supportive, equitable, and inclusive school culture. It demonstrates the capacity to evaluate, cultivate, and advocate for equitable access to education resources and opportunities that will support the educational success and well-being of each student. It will lead to a solution that is agreed upon by all stakeholders. It reminds all individuals in the school about ADA and FAPE laws, and it avoids future accessibility issues by renovating school and getting it up to code. The cons is that getting the school up to code will be an expensive and lengthy process. It might not be affordable immediately. So depending on the budget and depending on the timeline, it may do nothing to solve this immediate issue if there can't be also a temporary solution in place as well. May need to cut down budget from other programs or find the money elsewhere to afford these renovations if the budget doesn't support it, but ultimately it's kind of like a need at this point as opposed to just like a want or it would be nice, like kind of need accessibility. So my final decision is kind of a hybrid, a variety of them, all of them actually outside of doing nothing because that's not a reasonable solution. So I decided I would start with option 2 for trying to find a quick solution, moving classrooms, and then combine options 3 and 4 to come up with more of a long-term solution. So I would start by talking to the science department to see if there's any easy solution that will immediately address the issue for the semester or for the year by switching rooms. If there's an easy fix, I'm going to take it. If there is no way switching rooms will work, then I will look into temporary wheelchair ramps or other accessibility equipment to allow access to the biology class for Miguel. Either way, we're going to make it happen so that he is not sacrificing any of his educational opportunities due to something that is out of his control and due to something that probably should have been addressed when the school was built in the first place. I would like to meet with all stakeholders to discuss options and steps to move forward amicably, de-escalate, make sure that it doesn't come to legal action. Just make sure that Miguel and the Hernandez and the attorney all feel heard and understood, making sure that it does not escalate any further to any actual legal action so that we can come to an agreement that fulfills wishes and avoids legal action in the most effective manner. I would immediately make sure to add in trainings for ADA and FAPE to future professional learning experiences and to start looking into the renovation process to get the building up to code to avoid issues and to provide access to educational opportunities that support success and well-being of each student. I think this is a good plan. It involves all relevant stakeholders that are affected by the decision and potential future ones that might have been in a similar situation as Miguel. The plan addresses the accessibility issue, both short-term and long-term. It creates a culture of collaboration focused on the developing and maintaining of a supportive, equitable, and inclusive school culture. And it will provide the best educational opportunity for the student and family. And again, that is the ultimate goal here anyways, is to make sure that regardless of the situation, regardless of the student, you are able to provide the best options, the best educational opportunities for the students and for the families. That's your role as a principal. To implement my plan, I would again start with meeting with the science department to explore the room change options for a solution. Depending on the outcome, either start the room change immediately or go to backup plan for the ramps or other accessibility equipment. Again, if room change is not an option, purchase and install accessibility ramps and other necessary accessibility equipment in the science classroom for Miguel. I would like to schedule a meeting with all stakeholders to discuss ADA and FAPE and plan to provide access to education, educational resources, technologies, and opportunities that support the educational success and well-being of Miguel. Come to agreement on plan of action for continuing on with the desired biology course. And then I would like to meet with district superintendent to fast track the renovation process to get the rest of the building up to code to avoid future problems. I would meet with Ms. Guzman and discuss the importance of FAPE and educational opportunities and work together to create all staff trainings and education on laws and requirements so that everybody can be well informed on the commitments necessary to develop and maintain a supportive, equitable, and inclusive school culture. Potential issues for the implementation of my decision. Some of the perceived issues that I could see. Number one, not being able to acquire usable accessibility equipment or reasonable room change. Next action, I would exhaust all creative options to ensure Miguel has access to the class that will be the best educational opportunity for him without being limited by resources or physical space. Whether that's, potential for online version of the college preparatory class for short term, while working on the long-term solution in the meantime to address the issue permanently. There's a solution somewhere. Obviously, I would need to know the offerings, opportunities, a lot more information at the school to be able to figure it out. But there's a solution, we would find it. We would find something that's usable without sacrificing educational opportunities. The next problem I could see is that the budget will not support the renovation for permanent solution to accessibility issues. My next action would be to utilize the supportive community, kind of not like weaponize them, but get them on board, get them behind us as far as fundraising, lobbying, finding the funding somewhere to finish renovating the building to support the educational success and well-being of all students within the school system, based off of the perception of the support of the community, and how much they stood behind the Hernandez family, the impact that Miguel had as a sophomore starting quarterback. I think that based off of what I read, this seems like a community that would be incredibly supportive and would be able to rally and figure out how to make sure that these permanent solutions are within reach. So, while completing this assignment, I was able to understand and demonstrate the capacity to promote the current and future success and well-being of each student and adult by applying the knowledge, skills, and commitments necessary to develop and maintain a supportive, equitable, culturally responsive, and inclusive school culture. Through this assignment, I was able to put myself into the shoes of a principal who is faced with a tough decision on how to best support a student who has recently gone through a tragedy and wants to be able to retain as many of the educational resources and opportunities that he is entitled to. Opportunities that best support his educational success and well-being. Throughout this project, I was able to apply my skills and knowledge to determine the best course of action based on the proposed scenario. As a principal, you will be faced with tough decisions, and it will be important to use all of the resources and opportunities available to you to provide the best education possible to all students, regardless of their individual situations. It's been a great class. Thank you for watching.